Hello everyone, I'm Brian and welcome back. This is part 2 to moving India. I guess in my brain, moving right after moving is to and then whatever. For some odd reason, I don't know why I thought this is moving to India. Again, maybe the most common phrase in my mind whenever I see moving is to. So I still don't understand why it says moving to India, and I'm just joking. Let's go ahead and get started. So moving India. So that makes a lot more sense now with the videos I've been reacting to. Basically, it's moving India. Either moving the people towards a greater goal, I suppose. But anyways, we're going to get started in part 2.
As you said, Sadhguru, we are moving from the feudal medieval system to a modern system, and we would like both competence and integrity to be together.
You asked for a practical
That's a reasonable
solution.
aspiration.
You asked for a practical solution, not an ethical answer. Now, we must understand the leadership as a whole in the last 200 years there has been a metamorphosis. A few centuries ago, religious leadership was the most powerful leadership. Even if a king was in place, religious leaders controlled him. After some time, his power went away and the military leadership took over. We suffered the dogmatism of religious leadership and came down to the tyranny of the military leadership. Then we have moved on in the last 150 years on this planet to the confoundedness of the democratic leadership. A simple decision that one man can make. 540 people sit together and they can't make a decision in 10,000 years. What the country needs, everybody knows, but they can't take a decision because to make 540 people agree to one idea is going to take a long time. By the time you take a decision, is irrelevant most of the time. So I'm not talking about pessimism, I'm saying this confoundedness is there across the planet and nations and planet is suffering for this. Whether it's ecological loss or many things, human rights and things, you can't take any decision because various interest groups and things keep pulling and pushing. Now one thing is happening, that is now leadership is moving into the hands of economic leaders or the business leaders. In the next 15 to 20 years, you will see economic leadership will become far more important than political leadership. We are heading there, clearly. Even now, it is already very much there. In many countries, it's the businesses which decide what the politicians should do. We have done a different kind of job. We have an economist as a prime minister. The fact is, he's not a politician because he can never get elected. He's never been elected. So we are not following democracy because democracy happens by election. Right now we are running the nation by selection. Because we are trying… as we have our own jugaad for everything, Across the planet, this is happening. The power is moving from political leadership to economic leadership. Here, economic leadership has not come to that level. So we have put an economist as a leader who has no political capabilities. In a democratic society, a political leader means if he stands up, 1 million people should stand up with him. Only then he is a political leader. Otherwise he cannot be. So now it is moving into the hands of business. Always we have seen business as vested interest. They have the tag of vested interest hanging around their neck. This is a responsibility, I don't know whether they will stand up to it. In the last 10–12 years, I'm constantly in dialogue with economic leaders across the planet and also in this country, mainly because I see in the next few years the world will be theirs. But they have always been seen as vested interests because these are people who are operating out of personal ambitions. To transform them from personal ambition to a larger vision is the most significant thing we need to do right now. Because whether you like it or you don't like it, the power will shift from political leadership to economic leadership. If you don't shift it consciously, it will move from economic leadership to criminalization, because a criminal is a businessman. Personal ambition is what is driving him. But he doesn't go by the law, that's all the difference is. And now you see, many business people are also not going by the law. because law is ambiguous and law is enforced ad hoc. It's enforced on me, not enforced on you. Now I think, why should I go by the law? I will also find some other way to do it. This culture is setting in. So if we do not shift this consciously, unconscious haphazard shifting will happen, naturally criminals will become leaders. You should not be surprised. People who have proper criminal records, if they become Prime Minister of this country in the next 20 years, you should not be surprised if we do not do anything about it now.
That's the challenge, Sadhguru. What do we do? That's the precise question I'm asking. Because…
What do we do?
I wonder, again, I have this kind of theory. I don't know if it goes along the same lines of Sadhguru. But, so we have kind of four things to look at. So we have capitalism and socialism on the… and this is the center, you could say, right between his two fingers. Capitalism and socialism. And what's further socialism is communism. But what is further right? I don't know if there's a definition for it. If there is, I don't know what it is. But I created my own. I call it corporatism. Whoops, right here. Corporatism. Capitalism, corporatism. Socialism, communism. About center, to have a balance between socialism and capitalism. And what I believe corporatism to be is going to be where corporations will have more power than the government. And then you'll have, what you'll have, in my belief, is corporates that own such a large land or large land basically, and wherever they have their own corporation, they have their own set of rules. So it's like mini states or mini cities, but it's run by corporations as opposed to the government, because the government has lost so much power. So either way you look at it, the extremes, they're really bad, and the middles are, you know, of course, a balance or an attempt of balance of power. And then of course you have dictatorship and I forgot. Dictatorship with absolute power from one person, or absolute power from a group, or completely no power, and it's a vacuum power basically. No law, no nothing.
I entirely agree with you, because if power goes to businessmen, that's not going to be the best answer either. As you said, they're going to be vested interest there, while they have to be partners
they
in the
have
whole…
been vested interests. About 10, 11 years ago, in the World Economic Forum, I coined this word called inclusive economics. Since then, this word has been bouncing around in many places. Even the prime ministers of the nations are talking inclusive economics. If a more inclusive way of approaching economics happens, a businessman is a good leader, because the thing about the businessman is he's flexible. He doesn't believe anything. He has no qualms about anything. If the deal is good, he will do it. Even if he has to do a deal with the devil, he will deal with the devil. He has no prejudice. The deal is good, he will do it. I'm saying he's the most pragmatic man in the society, he's the businessman. But right now, he is driven by his personal ambition. To shift him to a larger vision is a challenge, which last 12 years we have been actively working on. With individual people, we have succeeded phenomenally.
Real quick, I just want to see if I understood him correctly. Basically, if you have a businessman trying to make a good deal, he'll do it. In my mind, I was thinking, it's like, well, a businessman, generally speaking, if he's evil intent, he'll sacrifice people to make a good business. Meaning that if people have to die, or if he has to fire people just to make a good deal, he will. But then he said, but shifting it to a larger scale, I hope meaning that instead of just looking at, because he was talking about personal ambition is the problem. So if he looks at it in a grander scheme, as opposed to just a better deal for him, but a better deal for, say, a country or the people, then that means not a better deal for just one person, but for the country or the people itself. So that means that sacrificing people, firing people is out of the question. It's a better deal for the greater good of people or the country.
And in the larger context, this is something very heartening on one level, is today if you meet the businesses of the world across the planet, like never before, there are many business leaders who are thinking how to do business in such a way that it will do some good to the world. It is very important, this, because business activity means just this. If I make some transaction it is beneficial to both of us. Only if it is beneficial to both of us, this activity will be sustained. If it's only beneficial for me, it will not go on. Only beneficial for you, it will not go on. Whether it's marriage or marketplace, this is true, isn't it? If it's only beneficial for one person, it is not going to last. Only if the transaction is beneficial for both, it will last. So in that context, the world moving towards business leadership is a good thing, but the business leadership has to mature and evolve, which needs to be worked at. And of all the types of leadership that I have mentioned, religious, military, democratic and business leaders, I have found personally, business leaders are the easiest ones to work with because they're willing to listen to something if it makes sense to them. Religious leaders will not listen to anything because they already got instructions from elsewhere.
I will say, and on top of that, the sheer fact that the only thing that matters is that it benefits them. Doesn't matter if it benefits anyone else too. I mean, I guess that applies for the rest of them too.
Sadhguru, we need to do something fast because the kind of crisis we're getting into in this country, it's getting deeper. If you see the political parties, with all their imperfections, they held the country together so far, but now even they are breaking apart. They are simply breaking down. For a party to survive, you require ideas and idealism and agenda. You require committed leadership which is trusted, and you require the promise of power. Increasingly, in most of the major political parties of India, all these three are disappearing. Long ago, idealism and agenda have gone. Leadership, for whatever reasons, the respect is increasingly diminished. And as the slightest threat appears to their political survival, suddenly parties are catapulting, they're collapsing. So unless some quick decisions are made by the political people of the country, by the media, by the spiritual gurus, and by the citizenry at large, I'm afraid we're going to have some very tumultuous time.
If you're looking for a solution, you must understand this right now. Even if it's a political leader, what is it that the people of this nation are expecting him to deliver? An economic answer, isn't it? They're not asking him to teach a philosophy. They're not asking him to give some teaching. They want an economic answer. Yes or no? They want an economic answer. Okay, how can I do my business? Where can I get a job? What can I do? This is the question they're asking. So when this is the question they're asking, the leadership should have the necessary business, capabilities. The leadership in India has no clue what's business. You understand? They are still think they are law enforcers. Yes, they are on one level. Yes, they are policymakers on another level, but they have no clue how to do business.
Again, seems very similar to the United States as well. I would say it's very much agenda though. Like he was talking about how it's lacking agenda. I figured that's kind of the point of the party. Is the problem, at least in my opinion, is the fact that the agenda becomes, how do you say, I mean, it's just a terrible agenda. I think a political party system has an agenda. I don't think that'll ever go away. That's I believe the construction of the political party is whatever the agenda is. That's how it forms, in my opinion. And there are certain agendas that are just really bad, in my opinion.
It's very, very important that we strengthen the business leadership and put proper laws. At least first thing, if we cannot, rehaul or overhaul all the laws in the country, at least the economic rules. What are the ways you can do business? What are the ways you cannot do business in this country? These laws must be drawn up immediately, immediately. Every day you postpone, the well-being of the country is being postponed by years and decades. So, if you make this and encourage people, because in 1996 in India, only 3% of the population was employed, 97% was self-employed.
Oh.
So, we are essentially entrepreneurs 97% of the population survive without jobs. We are great entrepreneurs, but we are only selling chickadkai, half a kilogram of chickadkai. This is our enterprise. And we spend a whole day, one person will spend a whole day selling half a kilogram of chickadkai. But do not underestimate this half a kilogram, because to sell this half a kilogram, he understands where he should stand, what he should say, what is the current politics, what is the latest cinema. He knows everything and he quotes things and he markets his chickadkai. Yes or no? So I'm saying there is this capability in the country, but we are trying to module now an economic model. For whatever reasons, I'm not going into the philosophy of it, the communistic way of existence, the socialist way of existence has collapsed. As an ideal, it's a fantastic thing. That everybody lives by his need, not by his greed, is a fantastic idea. But it did not work. So now we have chosen a market economy. Once you have market economy, you must understand that greed is good. If people don't have hunger, ambition, market economy will collapse. Our problem right now in this country is, we say this is a market economy. If somebody does well, we'll say, see, he's so greedy. This is not going to work. Somebody wants to gold paint himself and walk on the street. For me personally, it may be vulgar, but he likes to gold paint himself and walk on the street, that's his problem. But that is allowed in a market economy. Do you understand? We try to control these morals, now you kill the ambition. If you kill the ambition, you kill the market. So we must decide, are we going for market economy or are we going for socialist way of living?
That is kind of funny. I mean, not the painting thing, but it's just the sheer fact that this is again something that's going on in America about a lot of young people are wanting socialistic policies in America, and also wanting the rich to pay their fair share. Now, are the rich paying their fair share? I don't know. As far as I've heard, they pay for like half. In certain part of the states, rich people are paying half their income to taxes. California being the one state that has the highest state tax, and I think the federal tax is the same throughout all the states, and then state tax is different based on states. And California is one of the most expensive, the highest tax states in the country, and there's a lot of rich people there. So, and another thing that was stated is that the fact that if California became its own country, it would be the 5th richest country in the world, or somewhere around there, which is crazy. But it's kind of a troubling city because of a lot of issues it has. But anyways. A lot of young adults are wanting socialistic ideas, wanting the rich to pay more in taxes, because my only theory is the sheer fact is because a lot of them, I guess, aren't making a lot of money, so they see it a little unfair about how rich people are being rich, when some of these rich people are actually putting in the work. They're very ambitious. There's a fantastic video in Jubilee about the rich and the poor, about how a lot of this rich people that were in that show were in fact poor, or weren't really rich at all, but they worked their butts off like non-stop to become successful. And then you have these other kids who are not ambitious, but they like to do a job, but they're not getting paid a lot, so they see it as unfair because they're not successful in some sense. And it's really kind of strange. And then I'm like you guys very much. I watch a lot of reaction videos, and it's just to learn to see what's going on around the country. I don't really watch the news. I just watch YouTube videos. But there's people in America that comes from like Cuba or communist or socialist countries coming in over here and saying that, you know, it doesn't work. Now, I guess it all depends on how far socialist or communist you become, where the country doesn't work, and there's a whole bunch of it's very complicated, obviously. But I completely agree with Sadhguru, where you cannot put so many regulations that you're stifling the growth of the economy, and you're basically, if someone wants to start up a business, they're you need $50 million to start your business because of all the legal fees, the other fees, the environmental fees, the capitalist fee, or the socialist fees, the capitalist fees, this fees, that fees, each fees, these fees, 10 years fees, and like, good Lord, you can't even start up a company because there's so many regulations. And I think that's what Sadhguru is trying to get out of here. And it's just really funny. Things I've watched before, he's sitting there standing, and I'm like, my gosh. It's like looking in the mirror, kind of.
If we take steps in market, there is no time or no opportunity to look back and say, oh, that would be nice. There's no such thing. Both the systems have their problems. Greed is not the good way to structure a society. But right now, the whole world is being structured that way. The only way you can make greed productive is proper economic laws and unbridled opportunity for people to do business. For that, we need a businessman leading the nation.
Sadhguru, in your interactions with the business leaders, have you seen the inclination to accept this responsibility, to take up this challenge, to risk failure, and to do whatever it takes?
In a very big way right now in the world.
Well, that's very good news.
Internationally, it is very true.
But in India?
In the country,
because my universe
so
now is India at this point of time.
No, that is the thing. Once you're ruled by business, national boundaries become irrelevant. This happened in 2007 or 8. I was at Davos. This is Pakistani breakfast. General Musharraf was speaking. The hall was packed. Everybody wanted to hear what he's going to talk. I also got invited, I went. And he spoke and spoke and spoke. People are looking at, these are all business people, they're looking at, okay, what are your economic policies? Can we do business in your country or no? That's all they want to know. But this man went on saying how he knows how he's a great leader and how his leadership did this and that, and he was giving leadership lessons to everybody. Every one of them is a leader by himself. But he was giving leadership lessons, and the whole time, 2-hour time, he spent 1.5 hours. And then there was no time left, so he said only one question. This was supposed to be an interactive session, but he did all the talking. Then I raised my hand, because I had already met him previously. He said, okay, you. So I stood up and asked him, see, right now India and Pakistan, both of them, we are actually not developed countries. We like to call ourselves developing, because we're developing for too long. Forever if you're developing, you're not a developing country, okay? If you're developing somewhere, you must become developed. I said, this is happening for too long. The reason is, one major reason is, both the nations are spending enormous amount of money on this defense and nonsense. If India and Pakistan had known these issues, both the countries probably would have prospered by now. But somehow we couldn't keep that nonsense down, we fought all these years. Just 3 wars are not the thing. Preparing for the war is a horribly expensive process. I said, see, you don't expect the religious leaders in your country and our country to come to any agreement. It's waste of time doing all these interfaith meetings and things. Anyway, they will pretend and go home and they will preach their own thing, okay? Two military leaders cannot agree because we are pointing guns at each other, we are trained to shoot. Political leaders cannot agree because that'll make them lose elections. But a business person has no issue. If there is a good deal in Pakistan, every Indian businessman will go and do deals in Pakistan. If there is a bridge to be built, for a $1 million bridge, they're offering $2 million, half of Hyderabad will go there. So I said, see, the first thing is, let's open up the business. If you open up the business, if daily transactions are happening, my people are on that side, your people on this side, my money there, your money here, I wouldn't want to bomb your country, you wouldn't want to bomb my country.
Gladly that's beginning to happen now, this transaction business relationship in India and Pakistan.
Because national borders will go away, that is very important. On the longer run, it is very important national borders get diluted. That is when armies will come down. that is when the potential of fighting on the planet will go down. That is when development will happen indiscriminately, according to capability, not according to national identity, isn't it? So this transaction should happen.
Yeah, I think that's very hard, just because I do believe humanity has just been so entrenched with borders that, like Sadhguru was saying about identities, national identities, religious identities, skin identities, thinking identities, it's just all these identities are very much divisive because we use them as a divisive measurement as opposed to just something to cherish or to see as positive among each other. Yeah, as much as Sadhguru wants this, and I wouldn't mind it either, because that's the one thing I say I like. This is a really, I want to say a terrible example, but kind of a funny example, I suppose, is the fact that I think America is considered to be a pretty melting pot of the world. We have a whole bunch of different people from other countries in America, so you can practically taste the world in America in a sense. It's not going to be a true sense of it because obviously there are certain things that are grown in certain countries that would be better fresh, but outside of that you can taste Indian food, Mexican food, Japanese food, Chinese food, Malaysian food, Canadian food, South American food, all in general, African food in general as well. Just a matter of where it's at in the country. And I think that's an idea. That's what I guess you could say that the American idea is to have this melting pot of a country, but it's I mean, is it working out? I don't know. It sounds terrible at the moment, but I don't know if that's just small instances or whether that's something that's growing in America. All these diversity in America of ideas and cultures clashing. Guess we can't look past not necessarily look past it, but we cannot see it as a positive, but we see it as different, other, negative. Yeah.
And just previous day he was talking about how he's for peace and how he's looking for this and that, looking for support and money, but he forgot all that and he burst out. He said, "How can we do business? My dear friend," somebody mentioned name, "he died in my arms in the war. I named my son after him because of that. We have spilled blood, we have lost people. How can we do business? We cannot do business." International press was amazed that this man just came out and said we cannot do business with each other, being the head of a nation. But if we started doing business, don't do any of all these parlays which are very expensive, politicians meeting, anyway it's a foregone conclusion, it's not going to go anywhere. Do business, as much business as possible. You will see people will forget who the hell is a Pakistani, who's an Indian.
I think that's very insightful, Sadhguru. I think what you initiated is now bearing fruit because I think India and Pakistan are now willing to do business at last. Sadhguru, before we open to the floor, I limit to a couple of inquiries. We have, as you often said, great technology and vast resources today, better than ever before in any other generation. But as a society, as a country, we seem to be very poor in organization.
Oh, don't talk about that.
I'll give two specific illustrations to make this point, so that that line of inquiry can be pursued further. Finland, the tiny Scandinavian country, tiny in terms of population at least, it had every single birth and death registered 500 years ago. It's a haven for genetic research today. Even today in India, in any city, let alone small towns, we cannot claim that every birth and death is registered. It doesn't cost money, it's not a technological issue, organization. But a more important example, every year roughly about 200,000 children are born in this country with preventable congenital abnormalities, birth defects that could have been prevented largely because of two reasons. One is a viral disease called rubella. If only every girl child before pregnancy or before marriage is given that vaccination, there's a fully effective vaccine. thousands of these serious deformities would have been prevented. It's not costly at all. And the second is consanguineous marriages in South India. You know, we have this very sorry tradition of marrying cousins without realizing the consequences in terms of genetic…
We don't want our property to go to somebody else.
I know. But if only we had organization to make people aware, it's not even a question of money. If only efforts are made in that direction, vast amount of good can be done. So how do you promote outside of business? Business is an area where organizations are improving. But outside of business, except Isha Foundation and a few organizations, very few are actually able to organize well to be able to deliver exceptional outcomes. What can be done to really promote specific, well-directed action based on organization?
Somewhere, can I say something? Somewhere in your mind structure and in the minds of many Indians, particularly middle-class Indians, business is still a bad word. This must go. I'm saying even delivering the vaccine can be delivered by a business. It will be delivered much more efficiently, properly, and if they don't deliver it properly, you can ask them. You can demand that you want it because you paid for it or somebody paid for it. Right now, because it's a government agency or it's a social organization, whether it's Isha Foundation or somebody else, because we are delivering it as charity or as service, people cannot demand, why have you not done this? If it was business, they would have asked, why have you not done this? Otherwise we won't do business with you, we'll do business with somebody else. We'll buy the vaccine from somebody, not from you. So, business is not a bad word. Social organizations like ours and so many others have become necessity because one thing is, administration is not able to perform the duties that it was supposed to perform, like health, education, nourishment, ecology. This is not my business. You know, like I went somewhere and this big professor from Harvard University comes and says, "Oh, you are that amazing tree planter?" I said, "No, I'm not a tree planter." He said, "No, you planted so many million trees." Yes, I did, but I'm not a tree planter. My work is to make people blossom, not to plant trees. The administration should have planted the trees. They didn't plant, so when I have time, I'm planting. So, planting a tree, building a school, building a hospital is actually not my business. It should not be if the nation is functional. These are things the administration should do if it is that kind of medicine, if there is that kind of a Medicare system. Otherwise, businesses should do. Now, first thing if you say business in health is, you will say they will exploit, they will charge. Do you know how much this hospital is charging, that hospital is charging? It's all true. But now, if 10 hospitals like that came, market, demand and supply would bring it down to reasonable levels. Right now there's only one good one, so they're charging astronomical prices. If 10 like this came up, you would choose where to go, where it's sensible to go, isn't it? And proper laws to see that they don't misuse and exploit this capability. So business is not a bad word. Social organizations can fill in the gap for some time. They can never be a total solution. I'm saying Isha Foundation is not a solution for all the problems of this nation. If 1,000 organizations like this come up, we function very efficiently with absolute dedication, but still I'm saying this is not a solution.
Oh my gosh. Wonderfully spoken. Absolutely 100% agree with Sadhguru there. I do support the fact that, what is it? I do believe in supply and demand in the marketplace because obviously if there's a high demand for it, not enough supply, it's going to increase the price, and vice versa. If there's a high supply and very low demand, it's gonna die out, or it's gonna be very low price where it can still, so long as it can still make a profit. But it's kind of weird how there's a lot of people out there who do not understand supply. It's very simple if you want to simplify it, supply and demand in terms of the marketplace, the economy, and everything else. Really, that includes how much you get paid. If there's 50 billion people looking for one job. The person that's trying to hire has to pick up the field. It's like, okay, who's willing to work for a penny a day? There's someone out there going to do it. Now, if you have 50 million jobs, only one person, he's got to pick up the litter and can charge. That one person can say, "I'll take whoever will pay me the most." And people don't see that in the United States. Like, if you have more people in the country than jobs, then the jobs will have the advantage because there's a lot of supply of the people and a very high and a low demand. Let's see, high supply of people with a high demand of jobs, but low supply of jobs. How do I say that correctly? Massive supply of people, and the amount of jobs available to fill in those people is very low. So there's a high demand for jobs. But if you reverse it, where there's this low supply of people and high demand for people to work those jobs, these jobs are going to be paying. It's like, hey, look, I pay $20 an hour to work my job. It's like, oh, and then you say like, no, that dude's going to pay me 25. I'll rather work. Okay, $30, final offer. The jobs will be competing to grab people up to work for them. Obviously, each job, depending on what it is, has a limit of how much they can pay because, the job's not going to grab someone and lose money by getting that person. But there is a limit of how much that person's willing to pay before it cuts into where basically they either make no profit or they lose money by hiring you. They have to make money. So there's a certain limit of how much each job can pay. And I love the fact that the socialists social workers, sorry, organizations like the Isha Foundations or a lot of organizations out there that are willing to kind of fill in the gaps but not be a complete solution to the problem. I absolutely love that, and that's one thing I also support. It's the fact that it's like these little small private organizations that are in the local communities that know what the problems are. They just need a little bit of funding to fix these little tiny problems to help the community, whether it be families having issues, whether it's medical issues, whatever it may be. This local communities of foundations that can help out these specific problems. And another belief that I have, now this one's theory of my own, is that insurance, I think, is raising the cost of things. And the reason why I believe that is because insurance pulls the money of people. So if you have 10 people, we say we each put $2 into this pool, and then if there's a major medical problem, it'll pull some of the money from the pool, because normally an individual person would not be able to afford it, but because we have this pool of money, now this one person can afford it. And by doing so, it raises the cost of whatever the operation is, because hey, we're doing this operation, these people are able to afford it, we can now increase the price. Kind of like what he was saying about how the market will adjust accordingly. If more people have more money, the price of things are going to go up. If people are not buying things, price of things are going to go down until it finds that sweet spot where enough people are buying for them to keep the highest amount of profit. And I think insurance may be causing. I'm not sure yet. That's my theory. Let me know if you want to chime in on that. Let me know, because I'm curious.
This is only a patchwork. This is only a band-aid for a cancer.
I use that same analogy.
The problem is so huge. We do little things and people think you're doing great things. Yeah, I just tell them, what is a great thing? The problem is so big and you do little thing and it's a great thing. Why? Because nothing has been done. Because nothing has been done, the little thing is a great thing, isn't it? However dedicated we are, however capable we are, social organizations are not the ultimate solution for nation's problems. Once we have taken to market economy, we should allow the market and the forces of the market to function, and the market should be guided by appropriate laws so that it doesn't lead to too much exploitation.
And sorry, real quick. This is something that I've heard. It's called the free market economy, where the market is free to do what it needs to do without too much government intervention. And that's what a lot of people are pushing over here. I hate to bring this from left to right, but it tends to be people on the right that pushes for free market economy, and the people on the left tend to put a lot of regulations. But again, it's always a balance between the two. Like Sadhguru was talking about, we need to make sure that there's good government regulation, that people don't get exploited, but also at the same time we cannot have too much regulation to start stifling people who want to create their own business.
That is the only way, because we have chosen market economy. We cannot go back to socialistic ways of functioning on one level, market economy on the other level. It'll lead to confusion. Right now, that is what is happening in Indian minds. They're confused. They don't know whether to make profit or to make charity. I'm saying, let the business be structured in such a way, if I do business, naturally everybody must benefit. This is the rule of law. This is the role of law, that law should be structured in such a way, the laws of business should be structured in such a way, if I do business, everybody around should be benefited, not because of my charity, because of the law.
Well, that's wonderful, Sadhguru. That market principles must be applied and competition and choice must be the cornerstones, even in socially productive work of this kind.
I don't trust people's morality. I don't trust people's ethics. I've seen enough of it and I know in how many ways it can be subverted. That's why I'm saying the law must be clear and law must be enforced.
And that's a powerful message, Sadhguru. One last question before we leave it to the floor, Sadhguru. We're all proud of our own culture, tradition, or history, or philosophy. After all, each country is proud of its own past, and we probably have greater claim to some exceptional accomplishments as a society and civilization. But there are two problems that are recurring in the modern context. The first is, even in the minds of people of our background sitting here, otherwise enlightened and liberal, there is this moral neutrality to inequality by birth. While we treat people who don't have an opportunity because of circumstances, because of poverty, with a lot of kindness, with a lot of compassion, we do not realize that those children are entitled to the same opportunity that my child is entitled to. It's simply alien, it appears to me, to our culture unless a very strong message goes consistently. Unless everybody is allowed to rise, everybody will fall eventually. The second deficit appears to be, more or less as a corollary of this, a trust deficit, an incapacity to recognize that there is a common fate binding all of us. Politicians blaming bureaucrats, bureaucrats blaming judges, judges and politicians and bureaucrats together blaming media, all of them blaming somebody else. This is a blame throwing and treating the other fellow as a nuisance and not being able to look at the bigger whole and our own role in making the bigger things happen seems to be a very special Indian problem. What do you advocate, Sadhguru, to address these two challenges?
See, we need to understand India. The problem is, we are trying to look at India through a Western education window. Right now, all the educated Indians, somewhere there is one window of Western education, rest of it is total chaos. And we like chaos. We are a colorful mess. As long as you're not trying to work with somebody, Indians are fine. Because everybody is a genius by himself. But you can't organize a genius and get results. By themselves they're good. You try to put them together, there's a big problem.
I wonder if the famous saying of this would go, too many chiefs, not enough Indians, as they say. Basically, too many people of leadership, not enough followers.
So what India is why it is like this is, I already mentioned this in passing. One thing is, India does not have beliefs and India has never had moral code. See, every other nation has strict moral code, people feel guilty about certain things. An Indian can just do just about anything very happily. Do you understand? I have had the misfortune of sometimes closely interacting with some very famously corrupt people right now in the country. When I really looked at them closely, what I saw was, they did not even think they're doing something wrong. So your ideas of morality, ethics, they're shocked that you're saying, you're complaining, after all I become a minister, shouldn't I make some money? What are you talking? I'm saying they're not even… they're surprised that you people are complaining because India is not… has never had a moral code, but still people remained in a certain way because there was a spiritual ethos. People told you, everything is your karma, whatever you do, there will be a consequence. And people stirred up certain other dimensions within you. Every generation had people who would stir up this possibility of consciousness within you. We operated out of continuous stirring up of consciousness, never morality. Now we have come to a place where in the last few hundred years or few generations, nobody has come, I won't say nobody, not enough people have come to stir up consciousness. And consciousness has gone low, no morality, we are… between the two cultures, we are falling in the gap. We have lost our way of keeping ourselves in check, but we still cannot take on Western way of strict morality. And we are falling in the gap in between, that's where we are. See, right now, it's seriously happening, like you said yesterday's election results and everywhere else, whether it's Bengal or UP or Tamil Nadu or wherever else. Gradually in India, there is no party which you can call as national party, all regional parties. As regional parties becoming more and more powerful and they sweep the state and national parties are completely routed, I'm not trying to pitch for them because there is nothing to defend them, okay? But whichever way, whatever they may be, for the long-term interest of the nation, it's very important two or three national parties must become strong. Otherwise, after 25 to 50 years, we will wonder, why are we one nation? Suddenly one chief minister will become prime minister. A chief minister who is chief minister for 10 years and frustrated with his chief ministership wants to become a prime minister. When he sees there is no other way to become a prime minister there, he will become a prime minister here. Yes. And already some serious attempts in this direction have been made in the past in certain states. If we value India as a nation, it's very important that we must strengthen the national parties. How to join these parties? Both are a mess. That is a real problem, what to do. But what we need to understand is, there is people, there are parties, and there is administration. In Indian mind, these three things are distinctly separate. This distinction should go. There is no people, party and administration. There is people, people and people. This is what a democracy means. People who are sitting here in this chair, tomorrow could be walking the street campaigning for a party, day after tomorrow they could be in that chair. This is what democracy means, that you are here today, tomorrow you could be there. So this distinction has to go. These are all easier said than done, to remove these distinctions, to make people understand, because how many people can you even talk to in this country? Because you know only 2 languages. Yes? Maybe I know 3 languages, but how many people will you speak? There are 16, 24 languages in the country. Who are you going to speak? Who are you going to leave out? So there are these issues, but it is very, very important. However corrupt, however nonsensical, however rubbish it is important to strengthen 2 or 3 national parties, otherwise there will be no India after 50 years, there will be many countries.
Sadhguru, I actually entirely agree with you, and Loksatta and I have been always articulating the need to strengthen national parties. The tragedy is they are their worst enemies. So we do require to transform politics. That's why I was so repeatedly pleading that
I don't
unless
blame
we
you at
find
all.
an answer…
I wouldn't like to join any national party because we know what's happening and the way it's conducted.
So how do
but
we…
that is the reality of our nation.
But unless we transform them, unless… that's the reason why I'm pushing this today, unless the pressure comes from the spiritual gurus, from the civil society, from media, that the need of the hour is not merely replacing one with the other, but actual transformation of the nature of politics and building a framework for the unity of India. I entirely agree with you. So
I'm privately, not publicly,
privately.
not announcing to people,
Whatever it
giving them that privacy. Privately, we are slowly trying to transform many political leaders in the country. We have successfully worked with a few people, others are slowly coming in. But it's still a long process, it's not something that will happen overnight. And India, a country like India cannot be turned around overnight. If we work as a generation of people, maybe we'll leave a little better country for the next generation. That's where we need to look at. The most significant thing right now in the nation is, people have come to a place where they're willing to give up their caste, creed, ideology, everything for economic well-being. This may be described as greed by certain people. I see it as a possibility. There is only one ethos, everybody wants to do economically well. This is an opportunity to transform the nation. When they're economically down, you ask them to leave their religion and come beyond that. You ask them to leave their caste and creed and come beyond that, they will not come, because that net is a security. Belonging to a certain caste, belonging to a certain religion, belonging to a certain community has been their security for centuries, for thousands of years. Suddenly you ask them to come out, they won't come. Only if you throw up a big opportunity and a dream out there, people will crawl out of those nets, risking their life. So economic opportunity is the most important thing right now. Personally, it leaves distaste in my mouth to go on talking and pitching for economic possibilities, because that's not going to transform human life. But right now, if nation has to crawl out of the pit, social, economic and political pit it is in, right now I see the only solution is economic development should happen. It'll come at various costs will be there will be a price to pay for that. But we must pay the price, otherwise we'll stagnate.
So I'm wondering at this point, I guess what he's trying to say is the sheer fact that obviously, I think what he wants for India is the spiritual growth of oneself. But the problem right now is nourishment, people not having enough money to feed themselves. So basically, the three things that you must give to people first before they can start worrying about spiritual things is shelter, food, and water. Once they have those three of those major problems solved, then you can start worrying about your spiritual being. But the problem is the fact that once those three problems are solved, as Sadhguru once said, 99 problems arises. When the hunger is a problem, one problem. When hunger is solved, 99 problems.
Where we are.
Sadhguru, that practical wisdom actually is music to my ears. Unless we have such unrelenting focus on economic growth and rapid economic growth, I entirely agree, both political and social problems will only be exacerbated. I think we should give an opportunity to the floor.
Okay, actually I'm going to pause right there and leave the questions for the next thing, because we're going on an hour anyway. Again, a lot of what Sadhguru is saying makes complete and utter complete sense to me, and it's something that I've thought of, and I'm not saying I know this is 100% going to work, but I can see them work in a certain situation because it already happens in the country. But I fear that a lot of people don't see that as a solution, and they see something drastic, laws being in place to push the country in such a certain way, which I think can be terrible. Understandably, again, it's always a balance. You ask me where the balance is, I don't know. That is the problem. Certain people push too far one way or the other, and we get an imbalance, and economy or whatever may crumble. And again, like one of the pushes is for the rich people to pay more and more taxes. The thing they don't understand is the sheer fact that as a matter of fact, actually, let me find it. Hopefully it doesn't get flagged. But I'm going to pause real quick and I'll find that one quick video and I'll be right back. Okay, so I wanted to bring it up, but the clip is entirely too long and it might get struck down. But basically, this person is trying to get free college and a lot of free things, and the news reporter was trying to figure out where it's going to get paid. And this lady was saying that they should raise up the taxes, even up to 90% of the tax, 90% tax on the rich to 1%. And strangely enough, I didn't realize how much money you need to make to be the 1%. $250,000 a year, and you're considered to be 1%. But to raise the taxes to 90%, so if you're making $250,000 a year, now your take home is $25,000 a year. So that doesn't really make too much sense. But then again, I'm sure it's a bit more nuanced than that. But it's just that when you raise the taxes so high, a lot of people and a lot of businesses will leave the country just because they don't see profits. If it's difficult to make a profit, then more than likely we'll go to another country and try to make a profit there. I know economics is definitely much more nuanced than that, but I don't know. It's just crazy to think people want to raise the taxes so high. But obviously there is a fair share, which they keep saying, but what is that fair share? Anyways, getting way out of hand, way off topic, so I'm going to end it right there. So this is part 3, moving to India, at least my part 3. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.